They thought it was just another dead planet, until they found her dash. Deep beneath the surface of a forgotten world lies a secret older than time itself, a power capable of reshaping existence. But unlocking it comes at a cost no one could have foreseen. As humanity teeters on the brink of extinction, their survival hinges on an impossible alliance with beings who see them as little more than pests. What will you sacrifice to save your species? Stay tuned for a journey across stars, through shadows, and into the unknown. Don't miss this epic tale. Subscribe now. The storm raged above the desolate expanse of Zytherian 7, lightning tearing through the crimson sky like jagged wounds. Captain Alira Voss tightened her grip on the control panel of the battered scout ship, its hull groaning under the strain of atmospheric turbulence. She had seen storms before, but nothing like this. The air here was thick with static electricity, making every breath feel heavy, almost suffocating. Her crew sat silently behind her, their faces illuminated by the faint glow of instrument panels. They were exhausted, hungry, and running out of options. Earth's resources were depleted, its ecosystems collapsing under centuries of neglect. Humanity's only chance lay among the stars. In places like this, remote worlds rumored to hold remnants of ancient civilizations. Alira glanced at the navigation screen again. The coordinates matched those from the cryptic message intercepted months ago. It wasn't much, just fragments of data buried within cosmic radiation, but it hinted at something extraordinary. A repository of knowledge left behind by a long-extinct race known as the Caliph. If the legends held even a grain of truth, these beings had mastered technologies far beyond human comprehension. Technologies that might offer salvation or annihilation. As the ship descended toward the surface, Alira couldn't shake the feeling of unease gnawing at her gut. Something about this place felt wrong. Not dangerous exactly, but alien in a way that defied explanation. The ground below was barren, cracked, and lifeless, yet there were signs of unnatural geometry etched into the landscape, patterns too precise to be natural formations. Towers jutting from the horizon seemed to shift when viewed directly, their shapes shimmering as though caught between dimensions. This wasn't just another failed colony or abandoned outpost. This was something else entirely. When the ship finally touched down, the silence outside was deafening. No wind whistled through the rocks, no insects buzzed in the distance. Just an oppressive stillness that pressed against the senses. Alira stepped onto the surface first, her boots crunching against brittle soil. Behind her, Lieutenant Rin Karis followed closely, scanning the area with a handheld device while muttering readings under his breath. The rest of the team fanned out cautiously, weapons drawn despite knowing full well they wouldn't stand a chance against whatever might lurk here. It didn't take long for them to find the entrance. Half buried beneath layers of sediment, a massive archway loomed ahead, carved with symbols unlike anything they'd ever encountered. The glyphs pulsed faintly, emitting a soft luminescence that cast eerie shadows across the terrain. Alira approached slowly, her heart pounding in her chest. Reaching out, she brushed her gloved hand against the surface. A sudden surge of energy coursed through her body, freezing her in place. Images flooded her mind, visions of towering cities bathed in golden light, skies filled with ships shaped like living creatures, and then darkness. Total, consuming darkness. What the hell was that? Rin asked, rushing to her side. I don't know, Alira replied, shaking off the lingering dizziness. But I think we just activated something. The archway began to hum, low and resonant, as if awakening from a millennia-long slumber. Its glow intensified, spilling over the barren landscape like liquid fire. Alira took a step back, instinctively raising her arm to shield her eyes. Whatever they had triggered, it was clearly designed to respond to intruders or perhaps visitors. There was no telling whether the Caliph intended this place to welcome or warn. Around them, the ground trembled slightly, sending small plumes of dust spiraling into the air. Then, with a sound akin to shattering glass, the archway split open vertically, revealing a dark passageway beyond. Well, Rin said dryly, adjusting the strap of his scanner. Looks like we're going in. Alira shot him a sharp look. We don't even know what's waiting for us down there. And staying out here is any better? He countered. Look around, Captain. We're not exactly spoilt for choices. He had a point. With limited supplies and dwindling fuel reserves, turning back wasn't an option. Not if they wanted to fulfill their mission. Taking a deep breath, Alira nodded. All right, stick close, stay alert, and keep your weapons ready. We moved together. One by one, the team filed into the passage, their helmet lights cutting through the oppressive gloom. The walls were smooth and cool to the touch, lined with more of the strange glyphs that seemed to writhe subtly under the beam of their flashlights. Every few steps, the carvings would flicker faintly, as if acknowledging their presence. It was unnerving, to say the least. None of them spoke as they ventured deeper, the weight of uncertainty pressing heavily upon their shoulders. After what felt like hours, they emerged into a vast chamber illuminated by a soft, ethereal light emanating from crystalline formations embedded in the ceiling. At the center of the room stood a pedestal, atop which rested an object unlike anything they'd ever seen. It was roughly spherical, about the size of a human head, and composed of interlocking metallic plates that shifted constantly, rearranging themselves in hypnotic patterns. From it radiated a gentle warmth, inviting yet somehow intimidating. That's it, Alira whispered, stepping forward. This has to be why we're here. Before anyone could stop her, she reached out and touched the sphere. Instantly, the chamber erupted into chaos. The walls began to ripple like water, the crystals overhead flaring brightly enough to blind. A voice, deep, melodic, and utterly alien, filled the space, speaking words none of them understood but somehow comprehended instinctively. You are not Caliph, it intoned. Why do you disturb our sanctuary? Alira froze, unsure how to respond. Before she could muster a reply, the floor beneath them dissolved, plunging them into darkness. Consciousness returned slowly, like surfacing from deep water. Alira blinked against the harsh glare of unfamiliar surroundings. She was lying on cold stone, her body aching from the fall. Nearby, her team stirred groggily, groaning as they regained their bearings. Above them, the ceiling arced high, supported by columns that seemed to grow organically from the ground. The air smelled faintly sweet, tinged with something metallic. It was disorienting, surreal. Where are we? Rin muttered, rubbing his temples. I don't think we're alone anymore, Alira replied, nodding toward the far end of the hall. Figures moved in the shadows, tall and slender, their forms obscured by flowing robes that shimmered like liquid silver. As they drew closer, the details became clearer and more unsettling. Their faces were elongated, almost skeletal, with large, multifaceted eyes that glowed softly. Their movements were fluid, graceful, giving them an otherworldly elegance. One of them stepped forward, lowering its hood to reveal pale skin stretched taut over sharp features. Its mouth opened, revealing rows of needle-like teeth, but instead of fear, Alira felt a strange calm wash over her. The being raised a hand, palm facing outward, and spoke in the same melodic tone they'd heard earlier. You seek the legacy, it said, its voice echoing inside their minds rather than their ears. Few dare to enter its domain. Fewer still leave alive. We mean no harm, Alira said carefully, rising to her feet. Our people are dying. We came seeking answers, hope. The creature tilted its head, studying her with an intensity that made her skin crawl. Hope is a fragile thing. It can sustain or it can destroy. Are you prepared to bear the consequences of your quest? Alira hesitated. The question carried a weight she couldn't fully grasp. But there was no turning back now. Yes, she said firmly. Whatever it takes. The being regarded her for a moment longer before gesturing toward a doorway behind it. Then follow. But remember, the path you choose shapes not only your fate, but the fates of all who come after. The doorway led them into a labyrinth of corridors, each more intricate than the last. The walls seemed alive, pulsating faintly with veins of light that shifted colors as they passed. It was as if the structure itself were watching them, analyzing their every move. Alira couldn't shake the sensation of being judged, not by the Caliph who accompanied them, but by the very architecture of this alien sanctuary. Their guide moved silently ahead, its robes flowing like liquid shadow. Occasionally, it would pause and gesture toward symbols etched into the walls, though it never offered explanations. The team exchanged uneasy glances, unsure whether to trust the creature or prepare for betrayal. Alira kept her hand near her weapon, her instincts screaming at her to stay vigilant. "Do you think it's leading us somewhere specific?" Rin whispered, his voice barely audible over the hum of energy coursing through the halls. "It has to be," Alira replied. "Otherwise, why bring us here at all?" As they ventured deeper, the air grew colder, carrying with it a faint metallic tang that made their throats itch. The corridor opened into another chamber, this one dominated by a massive crystalline obelisk suspended in midair. Its surface shimmered with refracted light, casting prismatic patterns across the room. At its base lay a pedestal similar to the one they had encountered earlier, though this time, the object resting on it was not a sphere. It was a shard of obsidian-like material, jagged and sharp, radiating an aura of palpable menace. "This is unsettling," muttered Dr. Leora-chan, the team's xenobiologist, stepping closer despite the tension thickening in the air. She extended a scanner toward the shard, only for it to short-circuit instantly. Sparks flew from the device, forcing her to drop it with a startled yelp. "What just happened?" Rin demanded, raising his rifle instinctively. "The shard," Alira said slowly, her gaze fixed on the object. "It's interfering with our technology." Their guide turned to face them, its multifaceted eyes gleaming ominously. "This is the Echo Shard," it intoned, "a fragment of the legacy. To claim it is to accept responsibility for its power and its cost." Alira frowned. "What kind of cost?" The being hesitated before answering, its voice taking on a somber tone. "The Echo Shard grants knowledge beyond measure, but it demands equilibrium. For every truth revealed, something must be sacrificed. What you value most will be taken in return." Silence fell over the group as the weight of those words sank in. Sacrifice was a concept humanity knew all too well, but this felt different. This wasn't about giving up resources or enduring hardship. It was personal, intimate, irreversible. "We don't have a choice," Alira finally said, breaking the silence. "If this is what we need to save Earth." Her voice trailed off, but the resolve in her eyes was unwavering. She stepped forward, reaching out toward the shard. The moment Alira's fingers brushed the surface of the Echo Shard, a searing pain shot through her arm, spreading rapidly throughout her body. She gasped, stumbling backward as visions flooded her mind. Images so vivid they felt real. She saw herself standing in a lush forest, sunlight filtering through the canopy above. Children laughed nearby, playing among the trees. It was Earth, but not the dying husk she had left behind. This was a thriving, vibrant world, teeming with life. And then it was gone. The vision shifted abruptly, plunging her into darkness. She saw cities crumbling, oceans boiling away, skies choked with ash. Billions of voices cried out in agony, their despair echoing endlessly. Among them, she recognized familiar faces. Her mother, her brother, her crewmates. Each one vanished, consumed by the void. "No!" she screamed, clutching her head as the torrent of images threatened to overwhelm her. Her knees buckled, and she collapsed to the floor. "Captain!" Rin shouted, rushing to her side. He grabbed her shoulders, shaking her gently. "Alira, snap out of it!" But she couldn't. The shard's influence was too strong, its grip unrelenting. Through blurred vision, she saw the Caliph guide step closer, its expression unreadable. "You see now," it said softly, "the cost of knowledge is not measured in wealth or power. It is measured in loss." Alira fought to steady her breathing, forcing herself to focus. The visions began to fade, leaving behind a hollow ache in her chest. When she finally looked up, her eyes burned with determination. "I'll pay the price," she said hoarsely. "Whatever it takes." The guide nodded solemnly. "Then take the shard." But remember, once claimed, it cannot be undone. With trembling hands, Elira lifted the shard from its pedestal. The instant it left the surface, the chamber erupted into chaos. The obelisk shattered, sending shards of crystal flying in all directions. The ground quaked violently, forcing the team to scramble for cover. Above them, the ceiling cracked, revealing a swirling vortex of light and shadow. "We need to move," Elira yelled, clutching the shard tightly. "Now!" The team sprinted back through the labyrinthine corridors, the structure collapsing around them with terrifying speed. Walls crumbled, floors gave way, and the air grew thick with dust and debris. Their guide moved effortlessly ahead, seemingly unaffected by the destruction, while the humans struggled to keep pace. Every step felt like a battle against both gravity and time. "Keep moving," Elira shouted, urging her team onward. She clutched the shard tightly, its cold surface biting into her palm. Whatever power it held, it was clear that removing it had destabilized the sanctuary. They had awakened something ancient, and now they were paying the price. Behind them, the sound of grinding metal and shattering stone grew louder, a constant reminder of how little time they had left. Rin glanced over his shoulder, his face pale with fear. "We're not going to make it," he yelled. "Yes, we are," Elira snapped, her voice cutting through the panic. "Just keep running." They burst into the main chamber where they had first entered, only to find the archway sealed shut. The glowing glyphs that had once adorned its surface were now dark, lifeless. Despair washed over the group as they realized they were trapped. "There has to be another way out," Leora exclaimed, frantically scanning the walls for any sign of an exit. Their guide raised a hand, silencing them. "There is," it said calmly, "but it requires faith." Before anyone could ask what it meant, the being stepped forward and pressed its palm against the wall. A section of the stone dissolved, revealing a narrow tunnel leading downward into darkness. "After you," it said, gesturing for them to proceed. Elira hesitated, weighing the risks. Trusting the Caliph felt like gambling with their lives, but staying put meant certain death. Without another word, she ducked into the tunnel, the rest of the team following close behind. The descent was claustrophobic, the walls closing in around them as they navigated the twisting passageway. The air grew heavier, laced with an acrid smell that made their eyes water. Every few steps, the ground trembled beneath their feet, a grim reminder of the collapsing sanctuary above. Despite the danger, Elira pushed forward, driven by a single-minded determination to survive, not just for herself, but for the billions counting on her. At last, they emerged into a cavernous space lit by bioluminescent fungi clinging to the walls. In the center stood a pool of liquid metal, its surface rippling as though alive. Their guide approached it cautiously, extending a hand toward the pool. As it did, the liquid surged upward, forming a towering column that solidified into a mirror-like surface. "This is the gateway," the Caliph explained. "It will take you home, but only if you prove worthy." "How do we prove ourselves?" Elira asked, stepping forward. The being turned to face her, its glowing eyes locking onto hers. "By facing your reflection." Without warning, the mirrored surface shimmered, and images began to appear within it. Each member of the team saw themselves reflected, not as they were, but as they feared they might become. For Elira, it was a vision of failure. Earth reduced to ashes, her comrades blaming her for their demise. For Rin, it was isolation, abandoned by those he trusted most. For Leora, it was madness, her mind unraveling under the weight of impossible choices. The visions struck deep, exposing vulnerabilities they had buried long ago. One by one, the team staggered back, overwhelmed by the raw emotion pouring from the mirror. Only Elira remained steadfast, her gaze fixed on the reflection of herself holding the echo shard. "I won't let fear stop me," she declared, her voice steady despite the turmoil raging inside her. "I came here to save my people, and that's exactly what I'm going to do." The mirror pulsed once, then shattered, leaving behind a shimmering portal. Their guide gestured toward it. "Go." Your journey awaits. Stepping through the portal felt like falling into a dream. Colors swirled around them, blending and shifting in ways that defied logic. Time seemed to stretch and compress simultaneously, making it impossible to gauge how long they had been traveling. When they finally emerged on the other side, they found themselves standing on the edge of a cliff overlooking a vast expanse of wilderness. Below them stretched dense forests, rolling hills, and rivers glittering in the sunlight. It was breathtakingly beautiful but also eerily familiar. The landscape bore a striking resemblance to Earth, yet there were subtle differences. Plants with iridescent leaves, skies painted in hues of lavender and gold, creatures unlike anything they had ever seen roaming freely. "Where are we?" Leora asked, her voice filled with awe. "Somewhere between worlds," their guide replied cryptically. "A place where possibilities converge." Alira frowned, turning to face the being. "You said this would take us home." "It will," the Caliph assured her. "But first you must understand the true nature of the Echo Shard. Knowledge alone cannot save your species. You must learn to wield its power responsibly, or risk destroying everything you seek to protect." Before Alira could respond, the shard in her hand began to glow, its light intensifying until it blinded them all. When the brightness faded, they found themselves surrounded by ghostly apparitions, figures that flickered in and out of existence, whispering in languages they couldn't comprehend. "These are echoes of the past," the guide explained. "Memories of those who sought the legacy before you. Listen carefully. Their failures may hold the key to your success." The apparitions swirled around them, each one emanating a sense of urgency. Some appeared humanoid, others grotesquely alien, but all shared a common thread: desperation. They reached out, their translucent hands brushing against the team's skin, leaving behind fragments of memory. Alira recoiled as a particularly vivid echo enveloped her. She saw a civilization far advanced, its cities spanning entire continents. But their hubris had led to their downfall, a catastrophic war sparked by the misuse of technology stolen from the Caliph. The imagery shifted again, showing survivors fleeing to distant stars, only to repeat the same mistakes on new worlds. "They failed because they sought dominion," their guide said, its voice cutting through the cacophony. "Power without wisdom is a dangerous thing." Rin clenched his fists, visibly shaken by the visions assaulting him. "So what? We're supposed to sit back and do nothing while our planet dies?" "No," the guide replied. "You must act, but with caution. The Echo Shard is a tool, not a solution. It will show you paths forward, but the choices you make along the way determine the outcome." Alira stared at the shard in her hand, its glow dimming slightly. She understood now why the Caliph had warned them about sacrifice. This wasn't just about saving Earth. It was about ensuring humanity didn't repeat the mistakes of those who came before. "We'll figure it out," she said firmly, addressing both her team and the guide. "We have to." The echoes dissipated, leaving the group standing in silence amidst the surreal landscape. The shard pulsed gently in Alira's grasp, as if responding to her resolve. Their guide nodded approvingly. "Very well," it said. "The final trial awaits. Pass it, and you shall return to your world. Fail, and you will remain here forever." Before they could question what the trial entailed, the ground beneath them split open, revealing a chasm filled with swirling mist. A narrow bridge materialized, stretching across the abyss. Its surface shimmered like liquid glass, unstable and treacherous. "We cross together," Alira said, stepping onto the bridge without hesitation. The others followed, their footsteps tentative as the structure wobbled precariously. Halfway across, the mist thickened, obscuring their vision. Whispers echoed around them, growing louder and more insistent. Each voice carried a temptation, promises of power, wealth, immortality. Some members of the team faltered, drawn momentarily by the allure of these false gifts. "Stay focused," Alira barked, her voice cutting through the haze. "Don't listen to them." Her words anchored the group, snapping them out of their trance. Together, they pressed onward, refusing to succumb to the illusions. When they finally reached the other side, the mist cleared, revealing a platform bathed in golden light. At its center stood another pedestal, identical to the ones they had encountered before. "This is it," the guide said. "Place the shard upon the pedestal, and your journey will end." Alira hesitated, staring at the shard one last time. Then, with a deep breath, she placed it gently onto the pedestal. The moment it touched the surface, the world around them dissolved into blinding light. When the light faded, they found themselves back aboard their scout ship, hovering above Zytherian 7. The storm had subsided, leaving behind a calm, starlit sky. For a moment, none of them spoke, too stunned by the sudden transition to process what had happened. "Did we make it?" Rin asked, breaking the silence. Alira nodded slowly, her hand still tingling from where she had held the shard. "I think so." But something felt different. The shard was gone, yet its presence lingered in her mind, a reservoir of knowledge waiting to be accessed. She closed her eyes, focusing inward, and suddenly, images flooded her consciousness. Blueprints for sustainable energy systems, methods for terraforming barren planets, cures for diseases that had plagued humanity for centuries. It was overwhelming, intoxicating even, but she forced herself to remain grounded. "We have work to do," she said, opening her eyes. "Let's get home." The journey back to Earth was fraught with challenges, but the knowledge provided by the Echo Shard proved invaluable. Using the information stored in Alira's mind, the team devised solutions to repair their failing ecosystems, stabilize their climate, and rejuvenate their dwindling resources. News of their success spread quickly, igniting hope among a population on the brink of despair. However, not everyone welcomed the changes. Powerful corporations and governments resisted the implementation of the new technologies, fearing the loss of control over their monopolies. Protests erupted worldwide, pitting those desperate for salvation against those clinging to power. Alira found herself at the center of the conflict, torn between her duty to humanity and the political machinations threatening to derail their progress. With Rin and Leora by her side, she worked tirelessly to navigate the chaos, advocating for cooperation rather than competition. "It's not going to be easy," Rin admitted one evening as they reviewed plans for a global renewable energy grid. "People don't like change." "No," Alira agreed. "But they'll adapt. They have to." Months turned into years, and slowly but surely, the tide began to turn. Cities transformed, powered by clean energy and designed to coexist with nature. Oceans regenerated, teeming with life once more. Forests reclaimed land lost to urban sprawl, their roots healing the scars of centuries of exploitation. Yet, despite the progress, Alira couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. The Calitha's warnings about sacrifice echoed in her mind, a constant reminder that their victory had come at a cost. She often wondered what she had lost in exchange for the shard's knowledge, but no answers came. One night, as she stood on the balcony of her apartment overlooking a revitalized cityscape, she felt a presence beside her. Turning, she saw their guide, the Caliph who had led them through the sanctuary, standing silently, its robes billowing in the breeze. "You've done well," it said softly, "but the path ahead remains uncertain." "What happens now?" Alira asked, her voice tinged with apprehension. "That depends on you," the being replied. "The legacy is a gift, but it is also a test. Will you use it wisely, or will you follow the same path as those who came before?" Before she could respond, the guide vanished, leaving her alone with her thoughts. Years passed, and humanity flourished under the guidance of the knowledge bestowed by the Echo Shard. New alliances formed, old rivalries dissolved, and for the first time in centuries, peace seemed attainable. Yet, Alira remained vigilant, knowing that the balance they had achieved was fragile. She dedicated her life to ensuring that the lessons of the past were not forgotten. Museums and educational programs sprang up across the globe, teaching future generations about the sacrifices made to secure their future. Statues were erected in honor of those who had risked everything, including Alira herself, though she insisted on remaining anonymous in official records. Still, the question lingered, what had she sacrificed? The answer came unexpectedly one day when she received a message from an unknown sender. Opening it, she found a single line of text. Your loved ones live on in memory. Tears welled in her eyes as realization dawned. The shard had taken her family, her friends, her connections to the past, all erased to make room for the knowledge needed to save humanity. She had known the cost, but understanding it fully was another matter entirely. Alira spent her final days reflecting on the choices she had made, the lives she had touched, and the legacy she would leave behind. Though the weight of her sacrifice was heavy, she took solace in knowing that her actions had secured a brighter future for countless others. On the day of her passing, the skies cleared, and a single beam of sunlight pierced through the clouds, illuminating the statue erected in her honor. Beneath it, engraved in stone, were the words, "She gave everything so we could begin again." And as the wind carried her name into the horizon, humanity continued onward, guided by the wisdom of the past and the promise of tomorrow. If you enjoyed this epic tale of courage, sacrifice, and redemption, don't forget to subscribe for more thrilling adventures from beyond the stars.